Also, we hear about fascinating stories where 3D printed labs are established in high schools, where children are taught how 3D printing works. For those of us who are grown up, for long now, we have been hearing of 3D printed dental impact, 3D printed hip joints. And for those of us in engineering fraternity, we have heard of 3D printed parts going into aerospace modules. A common engineer today, what I want to say modern practice engineering today, is very well aware of the phenomenal benefits of 3D printing. The first benefit to say out of the field, there is no more part complexity anymore. Anything can be manufactured. Second benefit, there are no lead times. Lead times are practically zero. So on and so forth, there is no need to carry huge inventories. There is no need to transport parts from one part of the world to other part of the world. What does all this mean? It means for a common man that the so-called manufacturing, which was assumed to be complex, has become a child's play because even children can print 3D printed parts. The second possible outlook is within manufacturing, whatever was thought to be very complex, which required a lot of human skill, has today become without skill somebody can make. To give an example, that complex molar plant of that teenager, very, very complex, very personalized, very specific in shape and size, or that worn out hip joint of that old man, very specific to that person, can be managed very rapidly and without any human skills. Wonderful. It's a wonderful technology. It has got phenomenal benefits. At this juncture, if someone has to ask any one of us, saying that, boss, how much of this has penetrated into the business, into manufacturing business? Sadly, the answer is negligible. Just to give you some idea, to make you visualize as to what is the size of 3D printing. 3D printing. Just to give a good idea, manufacturing contributes to 12% of the global economy, and 3D printing contributes to 0.06%, 0.06% of manufacturing. That means the penetration of 3D printing into manufacturing is very, very small as on today. Well, there are many reasons behind this, including that the technology is still evolving and the business is yet to adapt it on a larger scale. However, definitely there must be more daunting reasons why the penetration is so low. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the effort, it is the direction of this specific session wherein we get to know what are those challenges which makes 3D printing still at the superficial level, and what are those low-hanging fruits, if at all, are available for us to make rapid use of 3D printing to gain maximum benefits in manufacturing. At this point of time, I'm glad to introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have got a panel of 5 eminent speakers. These fine gentlemen, all of them have developed deep expertise, deep domain expertise in the field of 3D printing, and they belong to the list of who's who in the area of 3D printing. Let me, or rather permit me to welcome all these speakers once again. Welcome to all eminent speakers. So welcome, and we look forward to hear from you as to why or how 3D printing can get deeper into the business. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point of time, I do not want to stand too long between you and the speakers. However, before we proceed, I got a few reminders for all of us. First reminder is we are running a tight time schedule. We have got 1 hour in which we need to listen from 5 speakers. Point number 2, as all of us anticipate, all these online programs may develop some technical glitches which are unanticipated, for which we have to provide for some time. So keeping in view of this, the team here has charted out a very tight time schedule just to ensure that all speakers are heard. The consequence of this, all the question and answer sessions will be taken at the end of all lectures. Ladies and gentlemen delegates, I hope you'll agree with this. All the question and answers will be taken at the end of all 5 lectures, and we'll make an attempt to answer as many questions as possible based on time availability. For the benefit of delegates, on the top and right corner of your screen, there is a box called as Ask a Question. In that box, kindly post your questions. I'll personally keep a track of your questions, and based on the time available at our hand, we'll try to answer the most significant questions. Thank you. Now let us begin the session. Today our first speaker is Dr. U. Chandrasekhar. Dr. U. Chandrasekhar is going to speak to us on additive manufacturing in industrial and strategic contexts. Here in his speech, he will share with us the insight on how 3D printing is graduating from a prototyping solution to a real-life manufacturing solution. Now, let me introduce Dr. U. Chandrasekhar briefly. Fortunately, a very good friend of mine. Dr. U. Chandrasekhar is a mechanical engineering graduate. He is a MTech holder from IIT Madras and he has done his PhD in DRDO, a very well-known figure in the field of aerospace. He worked as additional director in DRDO, and behind him he has got experience of leading team of scientists in Russia as well as Canada, wherein some successful aero development projects he has delivered. He is also on the board of IIT Chennai, and he is on the board of Minister of HRD. He has got many accolades behind him, an expert in the field, a very good friend of mine, known for a long time. In fact, we are lucky to have him to begin our course. Over to you, Dr. Chandrasekhar. I am going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the generous introduction, Mr. Vaidya. Getting connected with you through this wonderful platform created by CII. Can I ask Mr. Jasdeep whether I am permitted to share the screen now?
Yes, sir. We have given rights to print your screen, sir.
Could you just confirm whether it has come into the presentation mode? Because sometimes there could be a lag. Yeah. Is my screen seen?
Yes, sir. It can be seen. It is a full slide now.
Okay. So as Mr. Vaidya mentioned, we have known each other in the context of manufacturing for quite some time. Mr. Vaidya, just to refresh our memory, in the year 2004, there was an event at J.N. Tata Auditorium in IISc with focus on additive manufacturing. Those days it was called rapid prototyping. And we had the likes of Mr. Sumantran from Tata, Dr. Sumantran from Tata Motors, Dr. Pawan Goenka from Mahindra, and Dr. Bharat Balasubramanian from Mercedes as the keynote speakers to delineate the potentials of additive manufacturing in the product design and development. In fact, the keynote session was conducted by Dr. Kalam in 2004 October. So those days, the technology was largely associated with prototyping and visualization. Indeed, the poster boys for rapid prototyping or additive manufacturing used to be the technologies like fused deposition modeling of statistics and stereolithography of 3D systems, wherein the primary and most, you can say, dominant application used to be conversion of a CAD data into a representative physical model. What you see on the slide is the model, the full-scale model that I did for light combat aircraft program related accessory drive gearbox housing in 2005. So when the user groups started realizing that here is a technology which is also capable of producing the thermoplastic with the necessary strength that can surmount the loads, the stresses connected with the real world application, then the user started making use of this thermoplastic parts, as in this case for making a flapping mechanism that can power an ornithopter. This was a DRDO NAL project done in 2007 or 8 for demonstrating the possibility of a small duration ornithopter flight. But what was interesting happened later. Thanks to the contribution from interrelated topics like laser physics, material science, qualification, testing, software engineering, control engineering, the technologies like directed energy deposition, then metal binder jetting, then the pod bed fusion came to the forefront, and along with that came plethora of applications. In this slide that you see now, there is a representative portfolio of the parts that we at Wipro 3D have done in last 6 to 7 years, connected with gas turbine engines, unmanned air vehicles, oil and gas systems, the control and navigation systems for missiles, communication satellites, turbofan engines, etc., etc. And the most important fact is, while the initial set of applications were largely confined to prototyping and design visualization, in the recent times we have seen a paradigm shift towards a thrust or a need for fulfilling the end use. And it could be in the context of the strategic sectors like aerospace and defense, or the industrial context that are synonymous with the automotive and process industries. What is also very important is there is a rigor, there is also earnest effort on the field of on the part of the users to look at making complex parts that are supposed to withstand high pressures, high temperatures, extremely challenging environments, including corrosion susceptibility, and make use of 3D printing or additive manufacturing to replace conventional manufacturing for a part. So I think some of you might have seen this news item about 3 weeks old, wherein Wipro worked along with HAL to make an integral part of the Chetak helicopter engine called inner ring, made out of high temperature resistant steel, and which is supposed to perform for the designated duration at more than 650 degrees centigrade. And if you look at the entire process of development, the part building is only just about 15 to 20%. Remaining 80% is all about developing the strategy for testing, proving out, and creating the compliance with airworthiness authorities. And we had a similar kind of experience while working with ISRO or SAC Ahmedabad in June 2017, while redesigning a part called feed cluster, which was a conventionally manufactured part out of aluminum alloy before, but adapted it to powder bed fusion. And since 2017, this part, which is shown in the inset window, has been fulfilling the missions in the orbit at about 35,000 kilometers from the Earth, with the necessary compliance to the RF expectation. So I talked about HAL, I talked about ISRO and Wipro, which are large engineering conglomerates. And it's very, very heartening to see that similar kind of phenomena is also evident in the startup ecosystem. Just a week before, we heard about a Chennai-based space startup called Agnikul, who created a monolithic rocket engine, including the injectors, cooling channels, igniters, using powder bed fusion out of nickel superalloys. We have seen any number of teams from VIT Vellore, IIT Bombay, IIT Chennai, who happen to work with Wipro 3D in re-engineering some of the parts. What is shown in this case is the steering knuckle made out of titanium. The conventional part is bulky. It was replaced with a very efficient engine and converted into a physical edifice using laser powder fusion. So if you want to really capture what is the capability of the additive manufacturing in the context of the defense as well as strategic sectors and industrial sectors, I would like to say that in case of healthcare sector, the acceptance has been to such a level that even series production of patient-specific implants and orthodontic aligners have come into place for almost like 7 to 8 years now. Whereas in the context of automotive and process industries, where economic considerations are equally powerful alongside of the technical considerations, maybe the readiness is at a lower level. But continuously, there is an enlargement in the availability of the material, including functionally graded materials, superalloys, refractory materials, titaniums, steels, and we have seen more and more new user groups emerging. What I show in this case is orthomode transducer used in control and navigation systems for the missile. A part with almost like 17 different integral components has been monolithized, and we can see emergence of a specific phenomena in case of the strategic users, wherein to start with, this technology is being used for producing the parts where the risk element is less. As the appetite keeps growing, they are moving towards re-engineering the entire modules and systems, and they are also mounting the efforts for design for additive manufacturing. The drivers for this technology could be different in different contexts. Could be opportunities, could be production efficiencies, could be supply chain benefits. That's why we have seen screaming headlines some time ago that a global conglomerate like ArcelorMittal is trying to create a repository of spare parts in the digital world, producing the parts on demand just in time for their global consumption. It's not a must that we need to really replace the conventional manufacturing with 3D printing. As is shown in this slide, we can have a hybrid approach for making large parts wherein conventional manufacturing can coexist alongside of digital manufacturing and produce the parts for the benefit of the user context. Important to understand that the technology is difficult. There is a continuous emphasis on the process structure property correlation. There are several process parameters, including the microstructures, porosity levels, anisotropy, defect distribution, which you need to understand, and all this require a lot of effort and tolerance on part of the user group. I just want to conclude my presentation by saying that this technology can become more powerful if the existing components which were traditionally created for conventional manufacturing, like casting, welding, or forging, can be reimagined and then take advantage of this new technology in terms of cutting down the weight, cutting down the number of parts, and introducing multiple functions into a single part. So with this, I would like to conclude and hand it back to the coordinator, Mr. Vaidya, with a big thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Very enlightening. Friends, as I mentioned, we need to keep pace with time. Thank you, Doctor, for finishing in right time. Our next speaker on the session is Mr. Vaman Kulkarni. Mr. Vaman Kulkarni will speak to us regarding design for additive manufacturing. So design for additive manufacturing, he is going to speak to us both from the point of view of what best gain we can do from the part optimization, just like what Dr. Chandrasekhar showed the last part in the presentation, as well as Dr. Vaman Kulkarni will deal with how to make best use of the current 3D manufacturing limitations. Dr. Vaman Kulkarni is a mechanical engineer from UC Bangalore. He is a MTech from IIT Mumbai. He has got large, rich experience in the field of aerospace. As you can see, he has worked in DRDO as well as he worked as a director in the Honeywell Technologies. He was engaged with the most, most important programs of the nation, like Kaveri engines for light combat aircraft, and you can see all Airbus, Boeing, and GE, all kinds of the aerospace vehicles. Definitely, Dr. Vaman Kulkarni has touched here and there. Over to you, Doctor. We are now eager to hear you. Thank you.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. So as the slide comes up, thanks, Dr. Vaidya, for that nice introduction and then setting up the context for the today's talk. And of course, you, Chandrasekhar, as usual, he's talked about right from the nascent stage to where we are today for the additive manufacturing. Of course, he has been working for last 25, 30 years. My journey with additive manufacturing typically started around 2014 when metal additive manufacturing became little popular. Those days, there were not many people who were having the printers in India for metal printing. Wipro had just started and GTRA has purchased but yet to start. So that's where we started our journey of additive manufacturing in Honeywell. During the initial stages of additive manufacturing, the importance was more to print the parts for prototyping or tooling. That's where the technology was. There was not so much of emphasis on design for additive manufacturing because it's not getting into the production, but at the same time, quickly make the prototypes, validate the design, and then of course take it to production through the conventional ways, or even for the tooling purposes, not so much of emphasis on design for manufacturing. That was the initial emphasis, but subsequently it started getting into the production, but initially it was more like just replacing the existing part. No changes to the existing design, but build a part which withstands all the performance as well as the durability requirements, just replacing the existing part. That was the initial journey. But the real benefit of additive manufacturing, what we talk about, either to get a lightweight parts or improve the performance or reduce the number of parts, those benefits we can get it only when you get into the design for additive manufacturing in a very, very systematic and in a very detailed way. That's what I thought in the current session. I will more focus on how we can systematically carry out the design for additive manufacturing to get the best benefits, and then see where we are and what are those still challenges. And the subsequent to my talk, there are a few industry people who can tell us that how these things can be addressed. The first and the foremost thing as part of this is additive is enabling free-form fabrication. There are no limitation as such. So we can come out with a really an optimum design which can definitely improve the performance, and then we can reduce the weight. So that's where we want to leverage the benefits of additive. And of course, the design should be suitable for additive manufacturing. In the sense, the process of building the part has its own technology. So we need to have minimum supports so that there is a minimum post-processing required to take out that support, as well as there is very less wastage of the powder. And also the part should be reliable, and then it should be able to manufacture it consistently. So that is where the industry is looking at. Some of the questions which you, Chandrasekhar, brought it out in terms of the porosity, the microstructure, those things needs to be addressed. So if you consider those things well in the design phase itself, then we'll be addressing most of those challenges. And in most of the cases, we may require some minimum post-processing to meet the either the performance requirement or the finish of the part what we are looking at. So how to come out with the best solution as part of design for additive so that we'll have a minimum post-processing. So what enables this is we need to unlearn some of the conventional design for manufacturing, because the way each one of us have been taught is to keep in mind the conventional way of manufacturing and have those constraints during the design. So we need to take out those constraints, unlearn some of those conventional things, and have out-of-box innovative designs to get the best benefits of additive manufacturing. I'll touch upon the key relevant areas which needs to be considered as part of design for additive manufacturing. The first thing which I think all of us agree that the topology optimization, which has been in place for last 20-25 years, but was not effectively used because of the manufacturing constraints. But today with additive manufacturing, topology optimization is working hand in hand to come out of the best design. But the design what topology optimization gives us may not be the best to print it. In fact, you can see this the part which is there at the bottom on the left-hand side. So the topology optimization gives a design, but it needs a lot of supports, and it may not be the best way to print that part. So we need to introduce some of the AM process related inputs so that we can come out with a better design. You can see the two designs here. The one is what topology optimization gives, and then with the fine tuning, you have almost eliminated all the supports which were required. So that's the beauty of having both topology optimization and additive manufacturing working together. There are some examples which you have shown here. Some of the APU mount bracket, how we can make it lightweight with topology optimization. Then the wheels and brakes, the pin, how we can make it lightweight. So those are the very good examples. We can reduce the weight by 50%, and cycle time of having these parts could also be reduced by more than 75%. The second important thing as part of DFAM is the cellular structure, which additive manufacturing enables. So we can really have the design incorporating this feature to get the best performance out of it. Typical examples, what we see is having a strength to weight ratio very high and having a high heat transfer, the thermal insulation. Those are the benefits we get by having these cellular structure. An example which is shown here is a conduit, and which can also do the function of doing the heat transfer. So we can come out with a different cellular structure designs, and then we can quickly evaluate the performance. There are contradicting requirements, like you can want to have a high heat transfer rate, but at the same time we need to have very less pressure drop. So we can quickly come out with the different options and then decide on the options. For example, here, the BCC structure gives a good height transfer, but at the same time, it has a very less pressure drop also. So those are the things which is possible with lightweight structure. And the third thing is the part consolidation and assembly. We should not be looking at the part just that particular component. We need to have a bigger picture of the assembly so that we can reduce the number of parts. The GE fuel nozzle is a very good example where the entire fuel nozzle, which is made out of 20 components, it is now just made of one single additive part. Similarly, the heat exchanger, which used to have 160 parts, and now it is just reduced to one. So there are a lot of benefits we get looking at the next level of assembly, and then how we can consolidate the parts. The Honeywell part, which is a flow restrictor, a very tiny part, which used to have 10 parts, and it just not the number of parts, it eliminates the special processes like brazing, welding, which could be involved, and it also eliminates the assembly time, the fixtures which is required as part of the assembly requirements. The third most important thing is the materials, what additive is enabling. You, Chandrasekhar, talked about the multiple materials. But the key benefits what we get is considering the multifunctional optimization when you're considering the materials. We can also eliminate the waste of material which typically happens in the conventional machining. Functionally graded AM, either it could be multi-material or it could be intentionally introduced porosities, which will help in having a varying properties of the component what we can build. So those are the benefits what we get it. If you incorporate these things, if you consider these things in the very beginning, then you are going to have a big benefits. And when you come to the AM process itself of building the part, the support structure which I mentioned is a big thing. You can successfully build a part, but if you want to finish the part by taking out the supports, it's going to be a bigger challenge if you're not considered the AM build best way of building the part through the AM. An example which is shown here is, for example, a flow duct. Typically, conventionally, we used to have a straight holes because that's the way easily we can make the part. But with additive, we can make these curved shaped holes so that we can have a reduced pressure drop, and then you can have a smoother flow which is happening. And instead of having a circular hole, you can have shape the hole so that you can build the part without any internal build. It's a nice example of how we can incorporate DFAM things in the design itself. And then the way we orient the part, that itself can eliminate a lot of supports. Typically, if an overhang is if it is less than 45 degrees with respect to the base plate, that's where we need to have the supports. So we can orient it in such a way that so that we can minimize the support. And hydraulic manifold is another good example how we can come out with a design which can give a better optimization. The last thing which I want to talk about is the part complexity which additive manufacturing enables in multiple areas. It could be in a functional part. For example, the HPT nozzle guide vane. So that is a good example. It can do multiple things. It can do the functional way of what the nozzle guide vane should do. At the same time, it can also give the structural support. And so we can incorporate multiple functions in the design. We can also build embedded parts. We can embed the sensor so that we get a lot of data as the part functions. We can monitor the deteriorations or the conformal cooling for the casting parts. We can have a very cooling hole designs which can increase the life of the die tools which is used in the investment casting. And sustainability is with respect to our surroundings, how to make it cost-effective solutions, and how to make it less wastage, which is environmental friendly, and then how we can make it more beneficial to the society. So before I conclude, I will typical approach I will talk about. We start with the system design, not just the component, so that we can select the right component, and then also look at consolidation of parts. And then when we get into the detailed part design, we look into how to incorporate some of the things which I mentioned, whether it is a topology optimization or it is the lattice structures. So those are the things which we look into it as part of the part design. And then when it comes to the process design, we keep what is the best way to build that part to minimize the post-processing, to minimize the support structure. And then, of course, we leverage the AM simulation, which is today available. It was not there. It was the capability of AM simulation was very, very limited about 3-4 years back. But today the tools are available where it can completely simulate the build process. It is yet to develop in terms of the microstructures level, but it has been a very, very handy tool today to finalize on the design before we actually build the part. So in terms of challenges, I will still say that there are still few challenges because of which, like Mr. Vaidya told, why it is not accepted by the industry. One is the part size itself, the material itself, what is there, and then it has to be cost-effective solution ultimately. For medium and large production volumes, we still see that.
Kulkarni sir, can you please hasten up?
Yeah, it's the last slide. In fact, I'm just closing it with this. So then, of course, few of the dimensional accuracies which are required. And then we still need some of the post-processing related things, whether it is a annealing or a heap process to have a consistent things without the porosities and have a consistent part strength and all, whether short pinning. So those are the additional post-processing which are required. As the technology develops, I'm sure these things will be addressed. And today already a machine is available which can build a part by 1 meter by 1 meter. So I'm sure that technology is there to stay for next decade, and it is going to play a big role in smart manufacturing. Thank you. Thanks. That's with that I conclude my talk. Thanks for giving that opportunity. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Kulkarni, for getting us through right from the system design to part design, process design. So our next speaker for today is Mr. Yatiraj Kasal. So he's going to speak to us on the topic of path to production. So here, friends, as we can imagine, implementation of a 3D printed factory is a tedious journey. It is having a lot of obviously, it has got a lot of hardships, but here Mr. Yatiraj will tell us about how to make it simple, how to go quickly based on the experience of GE and their customers. Mr. Yatiraj is a graduate in mechanical engineering. He is once again another aerospace stalwart. Over 23 years in aerospace industry, and out of which last 7 years he has been into additive manufacturing. Currently, he is holding a position of lead in GE's additive works, wherein he is helping the customers for end-to-end implementation of 3D printing. Over to Mr. Yatiraj. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Vaidya. Vivek, can I have the sharing rights? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. So today I have the privilege to present a topic on additive production. So the title is Path to Additive Production. So within GE, GE Aviation was one of the earliest to embrace the additive and start the additive journey. And GE9X, which is the largest engine, the front fan itself is more than 11 feet, which means that two of us actually can stand on each other, and will be slightly shorter than the fan itself. And it is the fuselage, the engine diameter is almost equivalent to the 737's fuselage. It is such a huge engine. And as you may be following on the news, last year around this time, it took the first flight. So these components are, all the components which are there in this one are already certified and qualified. And GE9X also received Guinness Book of World Record for producing the largest thrust, which is 134,000 pounds of thrust. So why am I talking about GE9X? I mean, we are here to learn about additive, right? So GE9X has a bunch of additive parts. It has as high as 294 additive parts when it made the first flight last year. So it has a 10% lower fuel burn compared to its successor GE90. I mean, large portion of it is directly attributable to the technology advancements, and largely some of it is directly enabled by additive parts, I would say, right? Which are the parts which are there in this GE9X engine, which are making to these 294 parts? So here are the 6 parts which we have, which we can see in GE9X. The first and foremost is a temperature sensor. Some of it you saw in Vaman's presentation as well, but I will explain all of these things so that we know what exactly is happening in the GE9X engine. So T25 sensor, this is a temperature sensor, which is combination of 10 parts to 1 part, and 30% gives you more than 30% precision. Second one is fuel nozzle, which is like a very famous part right from LEAP engine time. This is a 3rd generation fuel nozzle, additively printed fuel nozzle, which is getting into GE9X. 5 times more durable, 20 parts into single part, and all of those things, right? So all check boxes it actually ticks. Cost, productivity, quality, you name it, it has it. And very interesting part, LPT blade, stage 5 and 6. This makes the largest number of additive parts in the GE9X engine. This is a rotating blade made out of titanium aluminide. The 50% lighter weight is actually coming from the material switch what we have done. The predecessors of this engine were having these blades made out of nickel alloys. And what we made here to make it lighter is switching the alloy from nickel alloy to titanium aluminide, which made it 50% lighter. And another great example is a servo heat exchanger made out of F357 aluminum alloy. 163 parts to single part. You can, I mean, from outside it looks like a cast part. I would leave you to your imagination on what kind of complex geometry or features it might be having it inside. So it is 40% lighter, but in size it is a lot smaller compared to its predecessor design. So this is another example, or rather another part, which is again checking all the right boxes. Combustion mixer made out of cobalt chrome molybdenum alloy, 3 times more durable, 6% lighter. Again, a great additive part which is getting into GE9X. Inducer is it's a cyclonic inducer when engine has to do a duty in a harsh environment like a desert, like let's say Saudi or some place like that. So you need to separate the sand particles getting into the combustion and the nozzle. So this part actually separates those particles and reduces the FOD damage to the further components. So very complex part, right from the inception, it has been designed for additive, and a lot of DFAM guidelines have gone into this one. So T25 sensor, fuel nozzle, mixer, inducer, all of these are today produced on concept laser machine, M2 machines, made out of cobalt chrome molybdenum alloy. LPT blade made out of titanium aluminide, produced on RCAM machines using EBM technology. Servo HX F357 aluminum alloy, again being printed on concept laser M2 machine for that matter. So these 6 parts are already certified, qualified, kind of into the low rate initial production kind of a thing. So how did we make these many parts into aerospace? Aerospace is not a easy industry to qualify and certify the parts, right? So we have to meet a lot of regulations, of course. So this is our path to production in a very high level, I would say. So if I have to talk on how we qualified each of them, probably it would take a day for each of those parts, but I am trying to give a gist of it in probably a minute or a minute and a half. So we often hear that additive is very special, very unique. The qualification is very challenging and things like that. But if you just zoom out a bit or step back a bit, this production process is like any other production process. Only thing is, yes, there are some new aspects to additive. There are some unique aspects to additive, not denying that, because it opens a lot of possibility like topology optimization or going to the feature sizes which were not possible in casting or any other machining process. So the manufacturing technology definitely opens up a lot of avenues for great innovation to happen. But at the same time, when we, I mean, nothing comes for free, right? So when we are pushing the limits of the design, we also need to address the challenges of those designs in the certification front. So when it comes to design requirements, we need to see how we can leverage the design freedom which is being enabled by additive manufacturing. What kind of DFAM you want to use, what kind of features you can use. You need to understand the capabilities of the technology today, and then you need to come up with the design requirements. So here the intent becomes the main thing. I mean, what is your design intent? And once you know your intent, then you will move to your certification or qualification. So here the regulatory authorities like FAA in aviation, it could be any other regulatory authority based on which industry you belong to. So the design intent has to be met. The safety intent has to be met when we have to do the certification. So how we will do it? We will do it by demonstrating the geometrical requirement. We will do a lot of functional tests. We will do a lot of quality, like it could be dimensions, it could be microstructure, it could be functional test, it could be any of those things. So by those things, you will demonstrate that the design intent is being met, and hence you will qualify the part, and then you will move it into something called low rate initial production. You want to see how the part actually performs in a low rate, I mean, in a controlled production kind of an environment. So this is where you will iron out or identify the opportunities or challenges which you may face when you as you move from design or prototyping stage to a large scale production. So this is your opportunity. The low rate initial production is your opportunity to understand what are the challenges and how will you address those challenges, and how will you have the scale up plan. And then you will move it into the large scale serial production, where you would have ironed out all those creases and made a smooth plan of making thousands and thousands of parts. As we speak today, there are like more than 50,000 LEAP fuel nozzles which are actually flying, right? So the additive manufacturing is no longer a technology for prototyping or only tooling. This is very much a production technology. Only thing is we need to understand how to reach the production phase, and you need to understand how what are the important aspects when you get into the producibility, right? So here we are showing two great parts designed for additive parts. One is the fuel nozzle tip. Typically you see the fuel nozzle in that shiny shiny picture, but this is actually the additive part which is there inside that shiny picture, right? So only the nozzle tip is actually produced through additive manufacturing, not that entire part we see in the posters is 3D printed, only the nozzle tip. And within that nozzle tip itself, there were 20 parts which were brazed, welded, and machined. Now all the 20 parts is a single part. So what we are trying to see here is aerospace, or for that matter, any industry has its own challenges in meeting those performances. And when we have to meet those performances, the manufacturing process has to deliver to the shapes or dimensions which is required by the designer. And hence it becomes very important for us to understand what are the dimensional requirements and how we are going to deliver it, right? So here we are showing one method of comparing the dimensions. So green is good, red is bad in these pictures. I mean, for another plot, red might be a good thing, but on these plots, red is bad. So you can see, you can understand what kind of deviations you can expect from 3D printing and how we will address those things to make sure.
Can you please hasten, Mr. Itiraj?
Sure, definitely, sir. I think I have only one or two. So this particular part has more than 500 characteristics which needs to be measured and qualified for additive manufacturing. So when it comes to producibility, accuracy and repeatability are the two keywords which you have to keep in mind. So and another thing is we have a lot of aspirations, but there are realities, right? We need to understand what are the realities when it comes to the manufacturing process and how you will address those things to make sure you will reach the design requirements or the quality requirements for your part. So this is a very detailed chart, but I am not going to go over all of these things. Main thing what I would touch upon is there are tools like, for example, simulation tools, which will help you to predict the deviations or deformations in additive and make use of those things and understand upfront before actually printing the part on the machine. Understand what are the kind of deformations which would be possible, make those adjustments beforehand before going to the machine. So that is one key takeaway I would say you have to take it from this particular chart. It pays a lot to establish manufacturing processes. It is very important for you to lay out your process, understand which are the things which you want to lock down or lock it or freeze it before you get into the serial production. Like, for example, build files or build layout, you want to lock it. You don't want you don't want it to be changed every build. You need to understand which are the parameters you will monitor, which are the things which you will which are the places where you need a very standard work instructions. So understand your process not just from additive point of view, but from end-to-end point of view. What are your individual process, how you are going to control, what are the records which will which you need to keep so that the path to certification becomes smoother for you. So the time given was very less. I have tried to give a very bird's eye view of parts and how the parts are certified and how we get into production. But I would be more than happy to connect with you beyond this platform and understand what are your requirements and how we can help you to get into the production phase. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Etiraj. A very enlightening insights. Friends, delegates, please trust me, they are all very complex topics requiring long times of debate. However, we have got short time in 10 to 15 minutes. Our speakers are trying to explain us. Let's go to the next session. Our next speaker is Mr. Anuj Budhiraja. Mr. Anuj Budhiraja will speak to us regarding smart manufacturing with 3D printing. So here he will share us the examples of successful implementations right at shop floor or right up to product. Mr. Anuj is an electronics engineering graduate and he has got the right experience across the CAD PLM industry as well as the manufacturing industry. Plus he has got a good experience across at a strategic level at the same time at the implementation level. Over to you, Mr. Anuj. Please carry forward. I'm going on.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Vaidya. Thanks a lot. Let me just share the content. Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. So next 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about smart manufacturing with 3D printing. With some of the industry success stories and getting some echo there. Can you be on mute? With some of the industry examples where industry in India as well as globally has adopted this 3D printing on the shop floor for manufacturing tools, jigs and fixtures, which is making its way onto the shop floor, making it more smarter and more easy to implement and overcome the challenges of today's manufacturing shop floors. So as we all know that now we are moving from an era of mass manufacturing to the mass customizations. Obviously the volumes are increasing, but if we look into the overall volumes for each variant, for each and every industry, be it automotive, consumers or heavy industry also, volumes are increasing, but in the direction of each variant, the number of models and variants are also increasing. So all these requirements are coming up from the customers, and it all comes with the new challenges, which will have to go through lengthy setup of the machine, employee safety, ergonomic defects which are being caught too far because of the workload of the different variants onto the manufacturing shop floor, and obviously the cost, time, and storage also. So how 3D printing is helping all these manufacturing aids to optimize the manufacturing shop floors by helping to decreasing the cost, by reducing the overall cycle time, as we all know that each and every product has to go through design and product development cycle and the manufacturing setup times also. So this technology, additive manufacturing, is helping all these areas to improve into the reduced cost and reduced cycle time, as well as reducing the human errors as well, and allowing the production for the repeat orders without retooling within the same shop floors as well. This is really a great example of Honda Cars India, where I have personally been involved for 2 years working with their manufacturing shop floor team, where the challenge was to reduce the weight of these fixtures which are being used on the weld shop checking for metal body. So if you look into the all these upper fixtures, these are like weighing somewhere around 25 kg, which were very, very heavy and cumbersome to use by the labor guys, and obviously not to be used for each and every car. Now, given a task in hand, we used all the parameters of design for additive manufacturing, as we have heard from the earlier presentations as well, why DFM is really important for adopting additive manufacturing in all the different areas of manufacturing shop floors, as well as the batch production also. So by reducing and improving this design and moving from metal heavy fixtures to the better ergonomic 3D printed fixtures, they were able to reduce the weight from 25 kg to 7.2 kgs. So the whole Amaze body was being checked and is being checked from last 3 years. Nowadays as well on the shop floor, all these fixtures are in use and done. And all these analysis and the benefits analysis done by Honda team itself, as per their Japanese philosophy of SQCDM, which is safety, quality, cost, development time, and the operator morale as well. So they have got huge benefits. So on the overall, I would say manufacturing shop floor, by implementing this technology in last 2 years, now they have put up a 3D printer on their shop floor, where they are reducing all these things and improving all these things by adopting this and using 3D printer for a lot of jigs and fixtures. Could it be go, no-go gauges, checking fixtures. So this is another example from one of the global customer, Eckhard, who is actually a large producer for manufacturing industries for their tool jigs and fixtures. So one of the fixtures, if you can see it in the picture, that this is one of the metal fixture which was being replaced by a nylon 12 carbon fiber tool, and this tool is being used for 60 times an hour for 8 hours and 7 days a week as well. This is more lighter. So the benefit with adopting of this technology is we do not have any design challenges, we do not have any manufacturing challenges. So we don't need to think about how you are going to manufacture it, as compared to the conventional manufacturing of these tools, where we have to look into the CNC capabilities and the overall lead time and the development time as well. So the focus will be more onto the application. The focus will be more onto the better ergonomics and ease of use as well. This is another example for one of the company called as Genesis. They are into producing these carbon fiber components. Now, if you look into the video, so all these grippers are being 3D printed for each and every different products. Earlier, this used to be around 15 kg, and now this 3D printed robotic arm is around 1.4 kg. And with multiple components in one single assembly, now moving to one single component with all the parts printed within one settings. So it can go into like there are a lot of industry example where industry has adopted in all across different domains, starting from automotive to manufacturing industries to consumer goods to oil and gas as well. And then all these kind of fixtures which you can see in the picture, all these black fixtures, CNC holding fixtures, which gives the similar kind of strength as well. But yes, in terms of design development and overall cost, it gives you more benefit. That is the reason of increasing adoption of this 3D printing on the shop floor as well. But as I think Mr. Vadya had mentioned in the initial speech as well, we are barely touching this 3D printing application on the manufacturing as of now. So the overall market potential is around $12 trillion. And it has already been matured up to a certain level, as we have seen in Mr. Yathira's presentation as well. It has already been gone up to the adoption of tools and adoption of parts within the aerospace. In automotive, we are seeing the strong adoption of tools now. Globally, it has already been done. In India, we are doing a lot of work where we see this traction happening all across automotive shop floor, where they are looking of adoption of this 3D printing in the tools as well as of the parts as well. So these are the current challenges and the current opportunities. What next? The next is going to be around using it as an end use, which has already been done in automotive. Now it is being adopted for all across industries. Like one of the example is from Siemens Mobility, where they are printing their low volume spare parts, which is helping them to eliminate the need for inventory. So it's the new word which is coming for these technologies are digital manufacturing as and when required. Another example which we have recently done around a year ago with the BMW China, where they are giving an option for customers to use their side liner as per their choice. They can choose their color. They can ask the BMW to put in some name tag, some number tag over there. So it's, as I initially mentioned, we are moving from mass manufacturing to mass customization. So customer is getting a choice of printing their name, their color, the different textures, and then it is being used on the end use part. So till today, I would say around 2,700 cars on the road in China where they are being printed with this side liner as per the customer's requirement. And we are working with them for the next phase also, which is the fuel cap. So with this, I'll end up my presentation with a message that yes, in manufacturing, making it smarter, 3D printing is really making its way. And now the next move and the next level is to move into the using it for end use productions also. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Anush. Thank you for giving us the confidence that we are already on the road.
Yes.
Also, thank you that you could wrap up in good time because we are running already ahead of time. Thank you very much. Okay, friends, going ahead, our next speaker is Dr. Ashish Mohan. He is going to share with us what is the technology landscape and synergy opportunities with CII. So in this insight, he is going to share with us what are the disruptive technologies in the near horizon and how CII can help all of us to lead through this area. Dr. Ashish Mohan is a PhD in robotics and automation. He's a mechanical engineer with over 24 years of experience. And I'll say he's got experience in whole technology, whether it's manufacturing or engineering. Also, to his credit, he has led 6 international innovation leadership projects. He has won International Innovation Leadership Awards. Over to you, Dr. Mohan.
Thank you, Mr. Vaidya. That was really kind of you to have introduced me to the audience. And thank you, everyone. It was actually wonderful. I'm fortunate that I have got a lot of leading points from all of you during your talks. So I will switch to my presentation immediately so that I can quickly take you through my slides. And then we will have a discussion, of course. I'm sharing my slides now. Give me a minute. I hope my slides are visible.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, gentlemen, give me a minute. There's some issue on my side. So, gentlemen, I am going to talk about the technology landscape and synergy opportunity that CII provides and gives to its industry colleagues, its institutional colleagues in major advanced engineering and disruptive technologies. Today, our main focus is, of course, 3D printing. The subject is 3D printing. So my slides will be, and my content will be more focused on 3D printing. But at the same time, I will also be talking about the larger umbrella landscaping of the technologies and what are the disruptions that are going to come. I'm Ashish, and I look forward towards a healthy discussion on this. But additive manufacturing and 3D printing, the two things that we are discussing at the moment, I see it as a key enabler in smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0 leadership. So I think all these things are summing up together. So I will just go to the things that I'm going to cover today. I'll be talking first 2 slides on what's going to shape up our world. And of course, the eminent panelists here are already aware of, but still for the audience, I have given 1-2 slides on this. Then technologies as a new order. I will give the global perspective and the science and technology ecosystem in India, and this ecosystem with respect to 3D printing and additive manufacturing, and how CII can synergize more with industry, we will deliberate upon this subject. One opener slide on what's going to shape up our world. Of course, we are very well aware of that global climate emergency is one key thing which is going to be the shaping up our world in the next decade, led by technology dominance, urbanization challenge, and other factors. But if we see the United Nations Sustainability Goals, the 17 goals which UN lays out, which are going to impact, we see the second point on top of it is the responsible manufacturing. When we talk about responsible manufacturing, that includes Industry 4.0, making it more efficient, and then making the best effective use of latest technologies like 3D printing and additive manufacturing. But then there are challenges which we'll talk about it. 5 major technologies which have been slated by Gartner and McKinsey, which are going to have the disruptive role in the coming decade. Of course, 5G leads it, but 5G, IoT, then additive manufacturing comes prominently in the list, followed by robotics and other high-tech automation systems. Urbanization challenge, just to include here, is going to be a key driver. But what is most important takeaway from all the sustainability talks that we hear from United Nations or other things is 21st century is going to be a century of minds led by science and technology people, which of course Asian countries are leading its way. So I will give that, with that perspective, I will take you into my slides. Let us see what are the key trends, what are the key industries, and what is their CAGR in the coming decade. When we talk about technology landscape, I'm referring to a very eminent discussion with which happened last year, closing of last year between India Portugal Technology Summit. They identified 7 pillars: mobility, robotics and artificial intelligence, IoT, Industry 4.0, genomics, blockchains, advanced materials. All of them having a CAGR expected to be more than 20% year on year, many even much more than that. But what is more important is to, when we from CII angle sat down and deliberated upon these discussions, we found that they are so well connected with each other that robotics, AI, advanced materials, IoT, they one way or the other will lead us. When it comes to operationalizing, it talks about a smart manufacturing, leads to this technology of additive manufacturing. Advanced material is one subject, for example, which is going to have a big impact on this technology per se. So with that, if we see what is the global perspective, how the world around is moving, I will first give this slide with respect to overall science and technology, and the same countries, we will see what are they doing in additive manufacturing. So US, for example, has been consistently leading the Global Innovation Index and leadership through its intensive research investments. In fact, more than 25%, 1/4 of the global total research inputs come from US. International publications are high. Germany leading the Industry 4.0 pioneer. Japan with excellent resilience in R&D expenditure is doing wonderfully well in investment on science and technology. And China, the country to watch out for, has been consistently rising in its manufacturing footprints, led by high-tech technologies that it has. But then this is the generic preview. Let us see what are they're doing in 3D printing technology, which is the subject of this conference summit. So the global 3D printing market size, the global size is expected to be to reach more it was $14 billion in 2020, but it is expected to cross 60 billion figure in next 5 years with a CAGR of more than 30%. That's a huge growth. And US maintains its leadership with 20% growth in 3D print technology. Well, more than $1 billion demand in the field is expected to come from European Union as well. So these are also good players. But within Europe, European Union, if we see, Germany is set to add another $1.2 billion in its 3D printing market size alone. So one side we say the complete European Union having a potential of $1 billion, but then the Germany corporates their own internal assessments, their papers which say that no, we alone will be able to surpass this figure through the pioneer technologies of Industry 4.0 and smart manufacturing that they already have excelled in. Japan, we see the 3D printing to reach US $450 million by close of this analysis period, which is next 5 years gap that we have taken. And China, by the way, the country, as I said, is to watch for, has a potential to grow by more than 1/4 of its current size, 25% growth in the couple of the size. I'm talking only with respect to 3D printing technology market size. So huge growth worldwide is expected. And this is then a scale which I wanted to show how the world and how the countries have been doing in the last 5-7 years. The two numbers that you see is what has happened. For example, if you take North America case, 2013, the 69% of world's 3D printing opportunity industry were coming from US market. And currently its share is 55%. And that reduction has been largely because the APAC countries have been rising consistently, led by China and South Korea, Hong Kong especially, also a key player. And they have been doing very well on the 3D printing technology space. It is expected that in next 5 to 7 years, the APAC numbers will come very close to the North America numbers, and which is by far a good indicator of that. There is a movement of the high-tech technology applications towards the APAC countries. What is India doing? Let us see. What is India doing? So we all know that, of course, with all respect to the responsible growth imperatives, in advanced manufacturing and industry 4.0 have seen relatively delayed deployment in India. And the only way out remains frugal innovation, which I think Mr. Yadiraja, when you told about the GE deploying all that made in India stuff into its flying blades. So that gives a confidence, of course, that frugal engineering is the key. If we are able to break that cost barrier of this technology, we will be able to take it forward. Smart manufacturing materials and adhesive technologies are the other imperatives. With respect to India, and particularly for the 3D printing technology, the sweat analysis was done by my team, and we find that Indian 3D printing industry, which is currently below $100 billion, but has a huge potential to multiply by at least 10 times in coming 5 years. And the market of 3D printer alone, I'm not talking about printing market, the 3D printer market itself is projected to touch $80 million by end of this year. So a couple of strength and weakness opportunity threads I have laid out here. I'm not going into the first three because the most important to consider and focus is the red items. Increasing imports and results in the higher pricing. If we are somehow able to break this cost barrier of the raw materials and of the poor quality 3D printers currently offered at low prices. These are the key.
Can you kindly hasten? Doctor, can you kindly hasten?
Sure. Next 2 minutes, I'll be just closing. This is the Indian science and technology ecosystem that I wanted to share, that we are doing well. But then how is CII synergizing? We would like to support industry, which are the key places. This is my final slide, by the way. So the key stakeholders are government, academic labs, and industry, most important. And through the smart manufacturing and additive manufacturing technologies, we want to work with the government. We are already working on Industry 4.0 policy recommendations to various technology subgroups, funding opportunities, and then we have reach out internationally. So these are 3 dimensions on which we are working so as to increase the footprint of Indian corporates in the additive manufacturing sector. Apart from CII, there are other government agencies who are helping and even funding projects in these domains. Technology Development Board, for example, takes up funding responsibilities for VCs in 3D printing areas. CII has a wing of Geeta Global Innovation Technology Alliance, which works on 3D printing technology and other collaborative technology fields. And then if we talk sector specific, then we have fundings from National Mission, Nidhi Prayas, and government schemes to promote through Imprint and Imprint 2.0. Details will be, of course, shared offline. So there's a whole lot of policies and funding opportunities available with CII and government. But industry will have to really step its own contribution also to see that a substantial gain is made in the 3D printing technology. With this, I would like to conclude that the opportunity scale is really plenty and the future is indeed exciting. Thank you, guys. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan, for a fantastic outlook on the 3D printing future. Also, thank you all panelists for enlightening us on so many nitty-gritties. Very well done. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have got one question from Mr. Vaibhav Jain. The question reads, is FDM FFF technology already becoming a thing of a past in polymer AM? Which polymer AM will lead in the next 5 to 10 years, or is it going to be sector-wise? Can I request Mr. Anush to take this question?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Vedya. Sure. Yeah, thanks for the interesting question. So as we see a lot of applications around polymer as well as metal, so I would say polymer AM is going to stay here with a lot of applications which are emerging now, with a lot of new polymers coming into the picture, starting from ABS to nylon 12 CF as well, with highest of the strength as well. So as we see that in aerospace, there are 50,000 parts which are gone through, or which are end use parts in metal. The similar way, there are thousands of parts in polymer which are still flying in the aircrafts now, which are being printed and directly being used in the aircraft as well. So both these polymer and the metal are going hand in hand with increasing penetration to each and every industry, I would say. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Anuj.
Thanks.
Thank you all panelists once again. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you had a nice time. You could acquire a lot of knowledge. Please trust me, these are all topics which are very deep in nature, and it requires long hours of deliberation to understand. However, our panels have made our life easy by giving us some quick insights. And I'm sure this we can use as a package in our knowledge to explore further. At this juncture, let me thank all the panelists once again for sharing their knowledge with all of us. Also, thank you all delegates. Thank you CII for organizing this special event. So with this, I can declare that this current session number 1 is over. However, before I leave the podium, ladies and gentlemen delegates, I request you to attend the next session, which is also equally interesting. This session speaks about opportunities in additive manufacturing for a sustainable manufacturing industry 4.0. So all of you just now heard Dr. Mohan, where he showed responsible manufacturing is the word, is the buzzword. So this next session is going to speak about us. So kindly log into that session here at this same location. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. So I stop my presentation. I am now leaving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Vaidya, Dr. Chandra, Mr. Kulkarni. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice session.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you everyone.
Jasdeep. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we can leave the session.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So Vivek will be continuing on the same link, no?
Yes, sir.